Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, theys and thems, and everything in between, to the Esoteric Wellness Podcast,
where we explore health and wellness from the deep, dark depths of the unknown, the hidden, the misunderstood, the misinterpreted, the misled, and the forgotten. So welcome, everyone, to Esoteric Wellness. Excited for today's episode. We got a special guest with us today, Emanuel. And Megan was able to join us again today.
Hi.
And we got Sebastian here as well, the cat.
He's my favorite co-host.
Super helpful.
Hey.
So today's episode is going to be focused on the pain recovery process once again, which last couple episodes have been about. But today we're going to focus on the perspective of the individual going through the process, not a coaching perspective, not a neuroscience perspective, but what is it actually like to go through this, to have chronic pain and go through this process and hopefully, become free of chronic pain, or at least, much better be able to deal with it. So I have Emanuel here today with us.
Hello.
To be totally fair and honest up front, Emanuel and I worked together through Lynn Health, which I've talked about on previous episodes. This is not a paid advertisement through Lynn Health. Neither of us are getting compensated for this. But we definitely like to give credit where credit is due. So that's the nature of our relationship. That's how we met. That's how we've worked together, is through Lynn Health. But I just wanted to get that out there up front. So, introduce yourself.
All right. So yeah, my name is Emanuel. I grew up in Hawaii on a small island. I grew up surfing and playing in the ocean and being outside a bunch. After going to college over in the mainland USA, ended up falling in love with the mountains, and have now found myself in Colorado, where I chase the snow, try to get good snow, and explore the mountains, and just try to stay outside and stay active.
Nice. Well, welcome to the show.
All right.
I think you are
Thank you.
Second guest?
Yes.
So,
Nice.
Our first guest was from Lynn Health, actually. So,
oh, cool. I was wondering that.
Yeah, we've been on this topic last several episodes. So,
Like quite an exciting Hawaii, and then doing the mountain thing. I mean, we're just, Midwestern. A little flat for us.
I try to find the beauty in everywhere, so I'm sure there's that out there.
There's plenty to do here too.
Nice.
Not mountain related, but
Right.
You can enjoy the outdoors for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Nice.
So to get us started, I'm curious, how did you find yourself in the throes of chronic pain? What was your pain that you struggled with? Kind of set the stage for us there.
Yeah, so it started with knee pain, and I thought I had like a structural issue. I got multiple MRIs, multiple X-rays, saw lots of doctors, lots of surgeons. And like just the way like things were going, it just wasn't totally making sense to me to do like any surgery or like anything very like intrusive like that. So I just kept going down the road, and as I kept trying to like heal naturally and all that, like I actually ended up having pain in other parts of my body. So it like went from my right knee, and then all of a sudden like both my knees were like they almost felt like the exact same, and I felt like I had two injured knees. And then like I started having issues with my shoulder, like shoulder pain, and then it was both my shoulders. And then that's when I was like, does not make sense. So I definitely like kept on the route of staying like holistic and staying natural because it didn't make sense to like do surgery on one joint when like all these other joints are having pain for no reason, it seemed like. Um, so yeah, and then I ended up way down the road, probably couple, it was like 2 or 3 years after I started having pain. I went into a physical therapist and they saw how I, just from getting off of the chair in the waiting room, they could instantly tell that I was being so guarded and like just like way too careful with my body uh, in relation to like my diagnosis of injury. And yeah, that physical therapist uh, started telling me about like that there could be a psychological piece that should be addressed. And I feel like at the time there was no Lynn Health because I don't know when Lynn Health started or anything or any of like the
3 years ago, I believe.
yeah I feel like the chronic pain um, programs like Lynn Health weren't really around or very like readily available. So I found like a sports psychologist, I think they call themselves.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh yeah, I like to do sports and I need psychology to help me get back to my sports. But it ended up just kind of being just basic like CBT
Mhm.
therapy. So yeah, down the road, and then saw another therapist who actually like gave me a book. Or no, I think he like sent me this PowerPoint video of um, the guy's like the guy steps on a nail with his boot and the nail goes like the nail goes through his boot and it's between the toes, but the guy thinks that it's through his foot and
It
he's
hurts.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, and then that's when I started to think like, oh yeah, like you don't have to have any structural issues to be in pain. And yeah, that kind of is what started the transition to like Lynn Health and doing the chronic pain work.
Do you remember what age you were when the knee pain started about?
I was 23, I believe.
And they were already talking surgery at that age.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Well, it was just like, I mean, I was going to surgeons. Like, I had no clue how anything really worked in the medical field like that.
Yeah.
I was like, because I thought I didn't know like I was talking to the person who would potentially be operating on my joint. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, until you're doing it, I mean, none of us know how that works,
Yeah.
until you're in the throes of it.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience going through the whole medical, uh, just the whole medical system.
Yeah. I'm curious, like when that first person told you there was possibly a psychological element to your pain,
Yeah.
what was your initial reaction to that idea?
Um, I was definitely like a little confused, but also relieved that there was another way. Uh, there was another way I haven't tried yet.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. And I remember it was hard to find what I wanted when he was like, because I was like, okay, like, do you know anyone? He was like, oh, I don't really know anyone who's really doing it yet. And I was like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
I do.
That's the challenge sometimes. I know
Right.
sometimes people meet that first kind of suggestion,
Hmm.
maybe psychological, as like you're calling them crazy.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's often met with a lot of resistance.
That's always my thing. It's like, oh, so I'm just nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
No, the pain is real. But I'm like, no, 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 no. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I do have to give that physical therapist a lot of respect um, for bringing that to the table in such a respectful manner. And like,
Yeah,
because yeah, I feel like people could easily be offended when like the psychological things are brought to the table.
definitely. I can tell you firsthand, even when you do it right, sometimes they still get offended.
Right.
Well, when you spend all those maybe potentially years and money and time and so many doctors trying to go through things and you're getting no answers and finally like, oh, it's in your head. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes,
Yeah,
when it was such a simple answer, but it's such a big answer.
Mhm.
And it was right there the whole time.
Yeah.
um so this pain you were having, how did it negatively affect your life at that time?
Man, it was probably the lowest low I've ever been in. Uh, I remember being really sad that I couldn't surf or snowboard or even go on a hike. And then it even got to the point where like I was sad that I couldn't even help my friend lift like a thing, like to, I don't know, like a couch or
Yeah,
help doing manual labor. Um, so yeah, I definitely experienced quite a depression there.
I bet.
Um,
You are supposed to be the prime of your life, your
right,
physical abilities anyway. And
right. Yeah, I was like, it was going through my head, like, oh, I'm like wasting my 20s and all that.
yeah, I can
I was
relate
going
to
to say,
that.
you can relate to that.
So my back surgery, I was what, 20,
You were 19.
19.
It
Holy
was a
shit.
month. It was a month after your 19th birthday.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I feel that.
Yeah. So I came a long way. Came a long way.
Um, what was like your outlook on your future? I mean, you're only in your 20s, you have all this life ahead of you. What was
Mhm.
the future looking like to you at that point?
Um, Man, I can't fully remember what I was thinking about in the future. I was kind of like, I was almost going like month by month at a certain point. I was like, okay, next month I'm gonna be a little bit better and I'm gonna be able to do this or that and um or maybe like in a few months I'm gonna go see this doctor and he's gonna like know what to do. Um so yeah, I was staying um I was staying positive, like keeping um just staying open to like that I will find a way to heal.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know, I was kind of trying to like be blind to like the far future and really try to focus on my next steps, like in my next immediate steps.
Yeah, it sounds like you were hopeful there was a future, but you weren't able to really give that any kind of detail until the problem was corrected.
Right. Yeah, because I didn't know if I was ever going to surf again or if I was ever going to have a healthy knee again or anything.
That's a hard pill to swallow, I'm sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm.
So once you found this approach, I mean, how did you find it, first of all?
Um, I have um my one of the therapists I was seeing who gave me the book and the book was called like my or Pain is Really Strange. The same therapist who showed me the PowerPoint with the guy's foot and the nail. Um, what was the question again?
How
I'm
did you
sorry.
find this
Oh yeah.
approach initially?
Yeah, so and then after like watching that PowerPoint and then I forget the guy's name. So he's a doctor who has a lot of these pain science presentations. And then I found an app called Hearable. Um, I actually like went on that app before before like way before starting the approach, and like I was like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't even know if like I fall into this category
Yeah.
yet. So I like put that away, and then I went back to curable. And then what really helped was listening to podcasts like this, hearing people's stories and like being able to relate was super helpful. And then I think in one of the podcasts, I heard about, I just heard about Lynn Health through one of the podcasts. I think it was called a different thing before. It was called like unlearnyourpain.com or something.
It might have been, yeah.
Yeah. So I just Googled that, and then Lynn Health came up, and I was very relieved to be able to work with somebody with my uh, just with my like unique scenario,
Yeah.
because all the podcasts were great and all to hear about other people's story and all that, but there was always that little voice in my head like, oh, like you're a little bit different than that, like
Right.
maybe.
My
Yeah, so
situation's different somehow.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very thankful to find Lynn Health and work with you and be able to make it a little more personalized. So I think that was very helpful.
Yeah. And Curable's a great app. It's really the exact same approach. The big difference is Curable is like a self-guided
Hmm.
process, where Lynn, we set somebody up with an individual coach to work with one-on-one.
Hmm.
I think it sounds like that really made the difference for you.
Definitely. Yeah, the one-on-one is what helped for sure. I remember like the well, yeah, like all of the sessions, but I remember for the first like five, especially, I was like, man, like this is the therapy I've been looking for. Like I went through all these therapists and like psychologists and all that, and I was like, oh dang, like this is exactly what I've needed.
What was it about it that made you say that?
I think it was so like it was in the it was in the exact field that like I felt like I really needed healing in, because
Yeah.
I cared about the sports that I do so much that like something that could get me back to those sports is like going to be the most healing for me.
So you just knew, you felt deep
Yeah.
down, this is the right place for you.
Yeah, because I feel like I just felt like it offered the most healing. It put me towards the right direction.
Um, what about this approach really surprised you?
Um there's probably a few things that really surprised me. Um it was surprising to see how similar the approach was to like um some people may call like woo woo or like hippie like
Yeah, yeah,
or even like I even studied a little bit of Buddhism too a while ago, and it was like I was going to these talks where like there'd be a speaker just talking about like Buddhism practices, and it would be like maybe like a day after I met with you and did some Lynn Health and like chronic pain practicing, and I was like, oh my God, like there's a lot of similarities here.
hmm,
So I feel like the this chronic pain program kind of like bridges the gap
yeah.
to like from like conventional to like spiritual holistic.
That's what I
Uh,
say all the time. This is like where the woo woo and
yeah,
science meet
yeah,
and
it definitely
overlap a little
is.
bit.
My
Yeah, it
favorite
definitely
thing
is.
What did the one lady say? She came in and expected you to be wearing like the dress and everything when you had your brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Because you had the hair and she's like, now you just need the dress. And like the robe.
The rope.
And I'm like, well, we're close. So just bring it all together.
uh,
Yeah, there's definitely an undertone of mindfulness throughout everything.
Very.
totally.
If it fits well with the individual, there could be a lot of meditation, visualization, things like that as well. But it's just what each person prefers, though, I think is the most interesting part. I'm not like just reading from a script.
Right.
Here's a checklist of things to do and your pain goes away. It's like finding what works for you. I'm curious, in everything you've learned, all you've been through, if you had to describe the pain recovery process in just a sentence or two, what would you say? I know that's a tough question.
Yeah. I don't know. Like a wild ride came up for me. Like
Wild ride. Okay.
it's a wild ride.
Yeah, that it
No
is.
doubt.
What
Yeah.
what do you mean by that? Elaborate. What's a wild ride?
Man, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ups and downs for sure.
That's no joke.
Yeah. The win there's a lot of wins. I think it was important to recognize the wins and to celebrate them and be like, oh, like last year I wasn't even doing this and stuff like that. And then like if you get a flare up or if you start having pain again and like you gotta start battling the thoughts again of like, oh, like am I messed up again, or like did I do something very wrong? And but yeah, just and then you go back to what you've been practicing and go back to your resources and utilize the resources, and then you get out of the trough, and then you climb the peak again and make another great accomplishment. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it is kind of cliche to say it's like it's an up and down thing, but it really is.
It is.
It really is.
It's an emotional roller coaster for sure.
Well, I don't
Definitely.
think you ever completely, you always have to use those tools. Like, what was it yesterday? You literally, we were sitting there and like, my brain's angry today. Is your back bothering you? He's like, my brain is angry. It's like, you're not going to give it that power.
Right,
You
right.
just, my brain is angry. I'm like, okay. Or mad. Would you say mad? I don't even know what you use, but you have made that comment. And it's like, after all these years and even what you're always going to have that, but you just have to take what you know, and you're going to have those ups and downs, but you have to,
It's
And
happy.
it's happy today. I'm glad. I'm glad.
and like for whoever's watching, like I feel like it can be a little bit demeaning to hear that like you're always going to have to uh, practice this, but um, it really just keeps making you stronger.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
so like, why not? It's like just going back to the gym and like keeping your muscles strong and all that. So yeah, at a certain point, uh, like you can definitely welcome the pain a little more, or like the trough in the journey a little more as a opportunity to strengthen.
I think too, those troughs get less deep over time.
Oh, for sure. I hardly, if it makes you feel better, I hardly ever hear that out of you now. And that's why I'm usually very surprised when I'm like, oh, one of those days. I mean, it's a rarity that I do hear that out of you. So
Yeah.
the troughs get much, much further apart. So
It used to be weeks and weeks of misery and pain and feeling like you don't know what you're doing.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually becomes a day or a couple days of a little bit more pain than usual.
But nothing compared to what you
But it's
used
not
to
a big
do.
deal. It's like, you know what to do,
Yep.
and you just do it and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very, very grateful for the journey. Those when I was like thinking that I was wasting my 20s and stuff like that, like that's totally not the case anymore. I'm grateful for the whole journey and to to have these tools now and to have the strength that I've built up.
Definitely, definitely.
And I can tell you right now, we're kind of old farts, and your 20s is nothing. Life is just starting now. So,
Yeah.
Nearly in the 40s.
I say, yeah, when you're almost 40, life is just starting, man. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's what they say.
What would you say was like the most difficult aspect for you?
I think the most difficult thing was wrapping my head around that structural damage isn't a, or like pain doesn't have to directly be related to structural damage. That was the number one
yep,
hardest thing
yep.
to wrap my head around.
I
Uh,
still struggle with that.
yeah.
I do. As his wife, I still struggle with that.
Because like growing, like I feel like we're brought up to just like, oh, like the X-ray says this, so like, yeah, you should.
It's such a deeply ingrained idea in our culture.
Yes.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it very much matches with our experience of pain. You mess something up, you break something, you damage something, you feel pain. Um,
It's very black and white. There's no, you cut it, you break it. That's it.
Seems like it,
Yeah,
but it's not.
I know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that I think for a lot of folks is really hard to get over at first.
Mhm.
Um, sometimes they even refuse to acknowledge it, but let's try some things anyway and see what happens.
That's me. I'm a prime example of that.
Do you find yourself today like accepting that no problem?
Um, it still comes through the thoughts every now and then.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
definitely.
totally. I have to like, I mean, probably just the other day, I think my knee got a little sore just from snowboarding, and it was like after the fact kind of thing, and I was starting to be like, oh, did I like really hurt it or something? But then I was like, oh, I mean, like if I really hurt it, like I would have known in
Mhm.
the moment. Like that's what pain is really for, to like stop you in your tracks to like keep you from damaging the whatever further.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, myself, knowing everything I do, talking about this every day, when I feel that twinge of pain, I still go down that road at first, like, oh, did I do
Mhm.
something? What did I do?
Right.
And then you got to stop and think about it. Like, no, wait, I didn't do anything.
Hmm.
This is just my brain trying to protect me.
It's being ridiculous again.
Yes.
And another thing that helped me like realize that I was indeed not hurt or I'm okay is that like, for example, I would like have a day where my knee hurt all day, and then I'd like get on a bike and I'd start pedaling the bike and like go on like a mountain bike ride, and it would feel better from. I'd be like like if I really hurt my knee, like it should hurt more if I'm like riding a mountain bike and or even going snowboarding. Like sometimes I'll go snowboarding and it'll feel better while I'm snowboarding.
Yep. You learn those little ways to tell, almost like catch your brain in the act. Like, oh, I got you there. You're not behaving like you should.
Dirty liar.
And a lot of this is like just getting to know yourself, how your body works, how your brain works, and
Totally.
being able to look at it with some curiosity and really be able to discern what's going on.
Hmm.
With all these challenges, the ups and downs, at any point during the process, did you like lose hope? Like this isn't going to work for you.
Um, hmm. I don't know. I mean, I feel like once I started like the process through Lynn and through like personal coaching, um, I yeah, I didn't really have a time where I thought that like it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Beforehand though, I had some troughs where I was like, oh man, I don't know what to do. I was definitely in tears multiple times with multiple people. I remember I went to an acupuncturist and I like cried the whole time because I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I keep doing this acupuncture. Like I'm still trying to get better. But no, once I started the program, I really was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, like for sure.
Awesome. I must have done my job.
I think coming into things with, I think attitude really helps. And we know with anything, having a positive outlook, no matter how
hmm
bleak it is, really truly helps in recovery.
A little bit of
So,
hope
exactly.
goes a long way.
They say no matter what, positive positivity, when you have
hmm
just that, ugh, it's not gonna, you know.
What aspects of the process came really easy to you, if any?
Um, mm, the probably the easiest things were like the graded exposure things where um, well, I mean, it was, I guess you had to think about what you wanted to do next in your
Sure.
graded exposure, but um, yeah, once I'd like find what I wanted to do, and like when it came to start doing it, like it came pretty easy because I already went through it in my head. I was like, okay, like this is going to be safe. Like this should be an okay movement or exercise or whatever. Um, and then reaping the reward um, from completing the graded exposure and realizing that I got through it without pain. Um, yeah, all that was probably, I don't know, the easier. I don't know. It wasn't that easy though.
Not that it was easy, but
No.
it uh, it seemed like it really clicked with you. It made a lot of sense. It was
Yeah, it made
clear
the
on
most
what
sense.
you needed to do.
Yes. Yeah, that aspect definitely made the most sense. Because like it was easy to start seeing progress so soon
Yeah.
with just like small incremental graded exposure.
Was there one activity through that graded exposure, like where you're like, holy shit, I just did that?
Um, mm, I remember like doing like box jumps in the gym like one day, and especially like jumping down, I was so scared of on my knees. Uh, yeah, I remember, and then I remember like jumping up, like jump up 180 onto the box, like and like doing jump spins and all that. Um, that was a definitely a good little breakthrough there.
Yeah. Went from scared to do it to showing off.
Yeah, yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't know if I would be doing jump spins now anyway.
yeah. uh-huh.
um, Last question before the break.
Okay.
It might be a tough one. We might have to elaborate on it after the break, but what this is I think in many ways a process of self-discovery, self-learning.
hmm
What did you really learn about yourself along the way?
Um, I definitely learned that I'm like a very much so like a perfectionist, and I always or like a lot of the time I'm working hard to make sure things are done right, like done on time, stuff like that. So yeah, that was definitely a big aspect in the whole like protective state that I was in regarding my pain. So yeah, it was good to like dive into that with myself and to like be curious as to um, why I need to like do things so properly or stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember you picking apart movements and activities like to the nth degree.
Hmm. Definitely.
um, but that perfectionism, can be felt by our brain as a lot of external pressure.
Hmm.
In many ways, it's an unattainable goal that we can't ever achieve, and
Hmm.
it can be seen as threatening in many ways. So that brings us to our first break. We'll be back in a moment.
All right.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Esoteric Wellness Podcast. Continuing our discussion of the pain recovery process with our guest, Emanuel. All right. So I'm curious, what were your go-to tools and practices? I know you mentioned graded exposure as being one already. Is there anything else that like you were reaching for time and time again?
I really tried to tap into some somatic tracking a lot,
Mhm.
especially when there was like a time of a flare up, when pain started to increase. Uh, yeah, I use that a lot. It helped slow things down, and like try to, it gave your body a chance to really like send you a more of a clear message than maybe a message that has been heightened by your brain.
Definitely. I think it's one of the more powerful tools that just when, especially in a flare, you're freaking out, your mind's racing. It's like just a great way to calm yourself down.
Hmm.
Not that it does anything with the pain in the moment necessarily, but it just like it refocuses your mind on where you want it to be and not down the negative downward spiral that
Hmm.
Yeah.
it can launch you into very easily.
Hmm. Yeah, and before I started the pain recovery process with Lynn, I was seeing a somatic experiencing practitioner.
Mhm.
So very grateful to to like bring those to like have those skills already, starting the pain recovery process.
Yeah, I do remember you came in already knowing what that stuff was, and that was great.
And that made your job a little easier, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's a hard one to wrap your head around too.
it is. It can be.
Definitely. It took me a while to really get behind it.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially people in pain, are so used to be out of their body as much as possible. You ought to ask them to let's go in our body and pay attention. Like, no, I don't want to do
Mhm.
that.
Especially when you're already mad at it. You're like, let's go in here and like check this out. And you're like, no, I don't want anything to do with it.
I'm curious, you mentioned earlier, like a lot of the way this was affecting you, you're just very cautious,
Mhm.
like overprotective of your body. um, where do you feel that came from? Where did you learn that, or how did that arise? It kind of always been that way, or did it come from something specific? You may have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think maybe, as I like got into college, I like I sustained a couple injuries, I think one was where I like banged my knee really hard on the concrete. So it was like an impact to the knee
Ew.
while I was skateboarding. Um, and I just remember it taking so long for the pain to go away. And I was like I remember being a kid, like that should have been nothing. Like just bounced right back. And then I remember I think I hurt my ankle, and that also took a long time to recover from. Um, and the recovery also meant that I wasn't like surfing, skateboarding, or snowboarding. Um, so I don't know. I think I might have like made like my favorite sports, surfing and snowboarding, like such a precious thing in my head that like I never wanted to be injured again. So that I like because I really never wanted to miss out on surfing or snowboarding. So um, I think that's kind of what it was that I kind of like developed this precious thing that I do.
Like your health and physical ability was so important
Hmm.
that any way it was threatened, you like that was elevated to such a level of importance.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
It's always interesting how people like get into the thought patterns, emotional patterns that kind of drive their pain. It is
Hmm.
truly different for everybody.
Hmm.
I could not make generalizations here in any way
Yeah.
as far as how that happens. It's really unique and
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. It's a definitely, I mean, there's probably other factors that come into play, but
Absolutely. I guarantee it.
yeah, it's a complex thing.
Yeah. And once you understand it, like literally everything in your life affects your pain.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't pick it apart from anything. It's everything's part of the picture.
Hmm.
All right. So let's get to today. In what ways has your pain changed?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, there's like, I remember I was at a point where I thought I had two injured knees and two injured shoulders. And now I'm walking around like sometimes not even thinking about any of them. The one knee I still like think about a lot because that's kind of where I started.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like a lot of these body parts that I thought were injured before, like I'm not even like thinking about them anymore. Um, so it's nice to let the guard down there.
So still some work to do yet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm still making progress.
Yeah.
Still still making like still hitting these wins um, that like would have probably been like a no big deal a while ago.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So are you able to fully enjoy the activities that you used to enjoy for the most part?
Yeah, I mean I'm pretty much back to I'm not doing like huge jumps like I used to on the snowboard or yeah, anything that radical. Um, but yeah, I mean like I was snowboarding all day yesterday. Um, like I still like do some practice while I'm on the hill, but like the fact that I'm even snowboarding and like going through the day and then ending the day like, oh, that was a win. Like I didn't injure myself or irritate my knee or anything. Like, yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's really amazing.
And all that. And how long ago did we start this together? It was. I know it was over a
Man,
year.
I think it's getting to close to 2 years, I think, at least, right?
I'll have to look it up on the next break. But
Yeah.
Surgery
yeah,
and no surgery.
Yeah.
definitely. And I know that might sound like a long time,
Hmm.
but just consider, I mean, if you did have surgery,
Hmm.
On two knees and two shoulders.
would you be back at full capacity at this point if the surgery has fixed the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's why I never really did it because I yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely feel like I took the right route because um like for example, maybe I did the surgery, but I was still so protective of it afterwards. Like I could have thought that it never even worked.
Yeah. Maybe you might even be more protective after surgery.
I
Right.
think a lot of people do that.
They
Hmm.
tell you it's fragile and be careful.
It's like there's titanium in there. I think you're okay.
Hmm.
That's reinforced, baby.
So I mean, I think it's safe to say you're pretty happy with the results so far.
Definitely. Yeah, I spent a month back home in November, um, surfing. That was, and like before then, I didn't really surf like I used to, so that was a huge win. Um, Back in November, and um, a few days ago, I did a banked slalom race on my snowboard. So I'm I'm
Nice.
still doing huge wins in my book.
Yeah. Um, in what ways have you changed as a person?
Um, I do feel like I've just slowed down mentally and physically. Um, like if I ever like have an inkling of taking a rest day or something, like I don't hesitate to. Whereas like before I would have been like, nah, like keep going, keep shredding, like keep going hard. Um, and I feel like that has definitely helped just like, I don't know, like integrate what I've been doing and just like slow down and take in my surroundings again and all that. And um, I've also like have been very more have been a lot more just observant of my thoughts and just like, huh, like I don't really like thinking that way, or like I wonder why that's coming up for me. I wonder why I feel this way. Um, so yeah, a lot more, a lot slower, a lot more mindful in a good way.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I think as I mentioned earlier, that mindfulness is kind of an underlying theme throughout everything.
totally.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Hmm.
Awesome. Um, other than your pain improving, your abilities improving, you're able to do what you want to do. How else has your life changed for you? Has it changed in any other ways?
Um, I feel like I've just become a lot more grateful for like for even just like the plate of food on my table, or like being able to have a car to drive to work. Like I've been like really been able to tap into the gratitude towards all these little things that come together.
Something we all talk about, but
We don't actually
rarely practice.
no
Yeah.
joke.
Like whenever like this is like I'm being serious. Like whenever I put my plate of food down on my table and like I'll close my eyes and I'll imagine the farmers who farmed the vegetables and like the truck driver who brought it to the store and like the job that gave me the money to buy the thing. Like I picture that whole whirlwind in my head and like, oh wow, that's crazy. Like oh so much had to come together for
It
me to
absolutely did.
yeah.
Well, and I think when we're in that frame where we're in so much pain that consumes so much of our life, we forget about everything else. We forget about being thankful for the little things that we have. And when
Mhm.
you're not, being eaten up by that, we can actually stop and be grateful for the things that we have. And, you really have the time to look around and be grateful for not being in pain and for the things that you love and things that you have and for not being in that. And you forget what it's like to not be in pain and having those things. And I remember what it was like being in pain and not. And it's like, holy cow, like this is taking that time to stop and being grateful is a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
And I wish we could all do that a little more.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it makes your brain feel safe.
Thank you, Kyle.
Full circle.
It really is. It really, truly is.
I think if I could make a generalization on the process as a whole, it's like a lot of people think about this like, I'll go live my life, I'll go appreciate my life and do all these things once my pain is gone.
Mm.
But would you agree it's really the other way around? You got to go do all those things to allow the pain to leave.
Yeah, because that's where I was at first. I was like, oh, like I'd be so happy if I can just snowboard already, or like I'll be grateful once I'm snowboarding again and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So um, yeah, just like you said, it is kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
It is kind of counterintuitive in that sense
Uh-huh.
and not always received well. You got to go do the things that are hard
Hmm.
and then they'll become easy. um, but yeah, it's a struggle.
Hmm.
What so far in your journey feels to you like the most significant milestone so far?
I think I think being home in November and surfing was by far the most significant, just because like I was with old friends
Mhm.
and surfing with them again, um, and like I just love the lifestyle of being by the ocean um, and like putting the whole scientific formula together on where you think the waves are going to be good that day, like the wind and the swell and the tide and all that. Um, yeah, I got my brain working in a in a way that I like to be operating.
Nice.
Well, one, that sounds amazing. Now,
Yeah.
the last time you saw these friends, had they seen you when you were not in your best capacity?
Yeah.
Is this the first time they saw you well?
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, it wasn't like I definitely didn't want it to be a big deal because like I don't know, I feel like I don't know, I was almost trying to like I don't know, like just kind of like hide it in a way that I like couldn't
Mhm.
surf
Yeah,
or anything. Um, so like but um I mean I think they probably were like, "Oh shit, that's cool to have E-Man back out in the water."
right.
Yeah.
You swagger on out there and just like rip it out,
Yeah, yeah.
Right on.
Mhm.
Do you still have any major goals you're working towards?
Um, I mean, I definitely do. I'm trying to think the next one
Like a
would
black
be
diamond or something like
a black diamond on the slopes.
that. Yeah. I don't know
Uh,
much, but I know that phrase. So,
yeah. Uh, hmm. I don't know. Like I don't like running at all, but I think just like I still am like a little nervous to go on a run.
Mhm.
I have done it before and been totally fine afterwards. But I just think that it would just be another goal of mine to like to be able to be like, oh yeah, like I'll run right now. Like that's fine. Like
Just to know
even
you
though
could.
yeah, just to know I could. Like I don't really like running or anything, but like I'd like to be confident that I can. Um, so yeah, that's probably the one of the next goals.
Okay.
Hmm.
Do you still feel stuck in certain areas, certain ways?
Yeah, I mean I'm or not I don't know about stuck, but like I still um I definitely have to like dig deep still sometimes to bring me out of things. Like right now, like my wrist is kind of being weird, and I'm like going in my head, like okay, like you didn't really hurt it or anything, like so like stop
Mhm.
worrying that like it's gonna be damaged forever.
Yeah, those old neural pathways are still there, right?
Yeah, they're still there, and um, it's just a matter of keeping the hard work up.
Okay. So you're not stuck. That's what it sounds like. You just there's room for improvement still.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there always will be, of
Hmm.
course. Do you believe that chronic pain is 100% curable?
I do.
Okay. Even though you haven't yet achieved it all the way.
Yeah, I mean, I've achieved it in certain parts of my body,
Yeah.
um, where like at one point I was like, "There's got to be something wrong. Like, it's why is it in such pain?" And then to like be here today and not have any pain in that part of my body anymore, um, yeah, I feel like is proof that it is curable.
But it does take time.
Definitely does take time.
All good things take time, they say, you
Can't
know.
say
Yeah.
that enough.
Mhm.
All good things take time.
And it's worth the journey for sure.
That's right. And it's not just about pain, it's definitely seems like it's about self-improvement as well in many levels.
You know, I would even go as far to say it's not even about pain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're focused on. That's what brings us to it. But we're working on other aspects of ourselves that lead to the pain leaving. But the pain is there for some other reason. So take that as you will. But I think it's part of a much larger process of self learning, self improvement.
Hmm.
Healing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that we all have to go through in our own way,
Mhm.
whether pain is part of that picture or not. We all have our own shit to work on.
Definitely.
Amen.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely true.
um, what what was the difference that having someone to work with one on one made for you?
I think it was just like personalizing the approach was a lot more helpful um and like having having someone to help me relate to the to just the whole like concept
Mm,
and to like take my unique situation and and to like help me realize that like this concept is like they're related.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I see that a lot. It's like, okay, all this information is great,
Mhm.
but how does it apply to me?
Right.
What do I do with that?
Hmm.
And that's the part you can't get from reading a book or an app, or because they can't just make that to fit everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, and also like having an outside perspective is definitely was helpful,
Yeah.
especially coming from someone who is like well versed in the field.
Yeah. It's someone who's been through it in some ways.
Yeah,
And
that is also helpful
yeah.
too.
Yeah, I think I can't say enough how big of a difference that makes for people. Because I would say about half the time when I meet somebody new, they've read all the books, they've watched all the documentaries, um, they've done all their own research already, but that's not enough
Hmm.
because there's no manual for how to take that and apply it in your own life, in your own circumstances.
Hmm.
And I, as a coach, don't even know that. That's something we have to work out,
Hmm.
together over time. But
Well, you can talk to somebody who relates to you on a level with anything. It helps. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like it's like, dude, I get that. I've been there, oh yeah, I totally get that. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever it may be. It makes you feel less of an outsider. It makes you feel understood.
mhm,
It's that helps. And I think that's where, you know, you can benefit, your folks in that way too. Because when you feel understood, it makes you feel safer and it makes you feel, I guess, more heard or, what have. It just, that helps, I think, with anything, not just this, but
Yeah, it's like a basic human like need.
yeah, to
Just
be
like,
yeah,
to be heard and understood and
mhm.
not an expert telling you you're doing it wrong. You
yes,
need to do
Right,
this.
right,
yes.
right.
um, if you had to narrow it down to like the most important thing you've learned along the way,
Mhm.
what would that be?
Um, the most important thing, I think, I think just like slowing it down and uh, paying attention to your thoughts and um, yeah, being curious. I think changing the changing the spotlight to being a more curious. I definitely think is was a helpful shift.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is so damn important
Mhm.
because it takes you out of there's a really big problem here and it needs to stop
Mhm.
to okay, there's a problem here. What's that all about?
Yeah.
It's that willingness to look at it, to analyze it, to experience it,
Mhm.
rather than I just need to get the hell away from this.
Mhm.
And while that might sound insignificant, the way your brain's processing that information, then it's totally changed.
Mhm.
And that's ultimately what we want to do.
Mhm.
Um, what, if any, advice would you give to someone listening to this who is stuck right now in chronic pain?
Um, First of all, like you can do it. Like you really can. Um, I think I think just find like a small like thing for like graded exposure, or like just find something small that can be considered as a win, and just go for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Starting small. Yeah.
I think
That's
that's the big
huge.
thing people miss is they just want that whole big cure. And it's like, no, little steps,
Hmm.
baby
Hmm.
steps. Chip it off a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to be in a place where I was like, oh, I'm either surfing or I'm not. Like, I never felt like there was an in between. Like, I'm either snowboarding or I'm not. Um, so like, yeah, starting small was uh, a big thing that helped for me, and uh, helped me get out of troughs.
Yeah. What would you say to someone stuck in one of those troughs early in the process?
Um, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like really get it into your belly.
Sounds small, but
Yeah.
it can make a difference.
No, that's a tool I use all the time. Like if I don't know if I'm like if I feel like my senses being heightened, or maybe like a little anxiety coming on, I'll like step back and put my hand on my stomach and like really just breathe into it. Um, yeah, it really brings like a pleasant tone to the whole situation.
Absolutely a powerful practice that I think anyone can benefit from.
Hmm.
Take
No
a deep
doubt,
breath.
no doubt.
You tell me that all the time. Do your breathing.
You got to breathe
I
anyway.
know. I'm his worst client, I tell you,
Uh,
because I don't listen to him.
Do you have any questions?
No, this has been very enlightening actually to see it from this end. You know,
nice.
it's
See, it can be done.
I know.
Yeah, that's I really I really wanted to be on this podcast because it was like podcasts like this that really helped me uh, keep moving forward and just hearing about other people's stories. So
Yeah. And
if this helps anyone, then it's a win.
I wanted a story that wasn't like one of these outlier success stories. Like I cured my chronic pain in 2 months,
Right, right.
Right.
which that does happen occasionally, but that's rare.
Yeah,
That's not the normal experience. I wanted
yeah.
something more representative of, yeah, this takes time and it's
Hmm.
hard.
Hmm. But yeah, everything I did along the way was totally worth it.
Yeah. Um, but there's so much of that crap out there. I
Like
read the
selling
book and
books.
my pain went away.
Yeah.
Did
That's
it?
that's great, but you're setting some unrealistic expectations for most of us.
And that's the thing. And when it doesn't happen, people are going to feel so let down. And
Right.
again, they're going to be on that, well, why doesn't this work for me? And then they're going to feel worse. And then their pain's going to get worse.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then they're going to feel left out again and hopeless.
Hmm.
I I check out some of the chronic pain like forums and groups out there online sometimes, which they're terrible. They're not helping anybody most of the time.
Tell us how you feel.
They're just people complaining. But one of the biggest complaints I see about this kind of approach, a lot of people saying I tried that, it didn't work.
Mm.
But you dig in and you find out they only tried it for a month, two
Yeah, I know.
months,
Hmm.
a week.
It's like I did that diet for like a week and I didn't lose any weight. It's like things take
It's like
time.
you
It's
didn't
lifestyle changes.
didn't even get started.
I feel like even if you're not in pain, like this approach is like
Yeah,
everybody should learn this.
Mindfulness.
right.
It's a
Yeah.
mindfulness and gratitude.
Probably be teaching that in grade school.
What?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's I know from a coaching perspective, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, it's been slow, but you've made
Right.
amazing progress along the way. You
Yeah.
really changed a lot, which is
Uh-huh.
want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. You've been with me through some changes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I do want to point out though that as far as how long this process takes, age does matter.
Mm,
The younger our brains are, the faster they change. That's just how they work.
right.
So, we're coming up on a couple of years for you in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty realistic, I think, pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
But, someone in their 80s, it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
But hey, we can, and I say this with the utmost respect, we can teach an old dog new tricks.
Absolutely. And I see people in their 80s, even in their 90s, see a lot of improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And there are exceptions to the rule, of course, as always. But I like being honest and upfront about that kind of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think there's like this sweet spot as well, like 30s and 40s,
Hey.
where, in our 20s, we're still figuring out a lot of shit in our life.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want to do? What's all this
Sometimes in our
mean?
30s and 40s, we are too. So,
But in our 30s into our 40s, we're really making that transition into what we want,
right,
who we want to be.
right.
And I think embarking on this process at that time seems to work the absolute best.
Mm.
Again, there's exceptions to every rule, but just something I've noticed. But and then there's the kids. I mean, 2 sessions, their pain's gone.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I wish
And
I
you,
had that kind of energy still.
It's like all you got to do is convince them that they don't have to be in pain. Okay.
yeah.
Somebody convinced me that quickly.
It's quite interesting.
Kids
Yeah.
are just, I tell you.
All right. Well, that brings us to our second break.
All right.
We'll pause here and we'll be back shortly.
Bye. Welcome back to the Esoteric Wellness Podcast. We have our guest Emanuel here with us, and now it's a free for all. So, what do we got?
What do you got?
Nothing.
What for you,
Yes.
an unbiased outside opinion, or mostly,
I've got opinions.
hearing that experience from someone who's been through it,
Yeah.
not just me trying to explain it to you.
Uh-huh.
What's your impression of the process?
As somebody who's not married to you, or somebody who's married to you, as somebody who's married to you, I'm not gonna lie, I teared up a little bit. I really did there for a second. I'm very proud of you, first of all. But as somebody who just from the outside and seeing what that was about, that was really cool. Like to hear it from somebody firsthand who has gone through this for quite a period of time. And to hear what you have experienced, what you have gone through, it's interesting to hear not just the science of it, but to hear like the emotional of it, the full like mind, body, soul of it. And I love that you threw the woo woo out because I make fun of him all the time for that. We're kind of the woo woo family, but I never expected him to get into that. That was always my jam. But I love that it hits on all those topics.
Mhm.
because I don't feel like you can truly heal something without touching on all of those things.
Right.
Because it all works together, and to actually hear it from someone who's gone through it, it's nice because, I know a basic what he does, but he doesn't ever discuss.
Throwing things.
Yeah, my cat's chewing on plastic, because he's a cat. My co-host has wandered. Come here. And I don't know, it's really, it's very informative. Um, but like I said, to be told all of our lives that, oh, yep, something's broken, you got to have surgery, you got to do this. But to hear, dude, I've got bad knees, I've got bad shoulders, I've got this, I've got that. And it's like,
Mhm.
nah, bro. No, you don't.
Right.
We can just work on it this way. And now I'm good. It's extremely informative. And like I said, I love that you come at it from so many different levels, and that it opens up so many different things, and it's not just the physical. I really appreciate that. So
Nice. This podcast was already a win then. We positively affected somebody.
Maybe she'll listen to me more now.
absolutely not.
Um, but it is interesting, like you can approach this in so many different ways through so many different lenses. And I think that's what best allows you to tailor that to the individual. Like you're open to the woo-woo. Let's embrace that.
Mhm.
I have other people who are very religious or spiritually minded, and we can approach it through that lens as well.
Mhm.
I have very scientifically minded individuals that they want to read all the papers and approach it through science. And we can do that too.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, it's something that can be talked about in many different ways, but really we're talking about the same thing.
Mhm.
The customization is nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were discussing when you went from like the app to what this is you can really tailor to each person. Like if I would get into an app, I would, since I'm old, I I would get in there, and if you have these certain things, I'd probably be like, what do I do with this?
Mhm.
How do I do this thing? Like having somebody there to hold my hand through this and tell me what I need to do. And that's where you and I always argue. I'm like, just tell me what to do. And you're like, I don't do that. And I'm like, no, just tell me what to do. Um, so somebody to hold my hand through the process and help me guide me through this. That's what I need. I have enough on my plate in my life, and I'm a control freak. So if this is something I'm doing and I can have somebody help me through it, that's one less thing that I have to do. And that would be wonderful.
It does take some of the guesswork out of it,
Yes.
some of the
Mhm.
confusion.
And I have enough apps on my phone. I don't need more. Shut up.
You said
I did.
it. You being a little more maybe open-minded in that direction, do
Mhm.
you see any connection to more of um, a spiritual progression?
Yeah, I mean, like I feel more of like the interconnectedness of just the universe and all things, of like the intelligence of how everything comes together and works itself out.
Yeah.
And like I've been approaching my life a lot like that. Um, like if something bad happens to me or to somebody close, um, I'll first be like, oh yeah, I mean, like that's just the universe doing its thing. Like a like a like I don't know, like if a rabbit in nature gets eaten by a mountain lion, like that's a bad thing for that rabbit, but like it's really nature just doing its thing.
The mountain lion is a good thing.
Yeah, right.
Right away.
I think in many ways, this is like learning how to let go of the need to control things.
Mm.
Like, because when we're in pain, we want to control it. We want to eliminate it. We want to make it go away.
Mm-hmm. Want to treat it.
But this isn't a process where you defeat your pain in battle. You chase it off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I'm going to sit here with it,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, like, you just learn to let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you and I would struggle. You would try to do that whole thing where like, all right, let's look at it. And I'm like, I don't want to look at it. I'm mad at it. I'm going to ignore it. You're like, all right, we're going to do, I'm like, I don't do well with this because I'm stubborn.
It takes practice.
Yeah, well, I'm a horrible candidate. I also struggle working with you.
Would you want to share like what you're working on in this sense? You're kind of alluding to you're kind of trying to use this on your own,
Which part?
these approaches.
Oh, what you and I like the different things we've done?
For you, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm like this. Yeah, we've tried the meditation thing.
Mhm.
And I'm like this ADHD kid that can't sit still. So we find that music works well for me.
Mm.
And I try to like, that's my calming thing. But you know, my pain, I'm a stress person. And we've found that here lately that I'm very, and we've covered this before in previous episodes. I'm extremely involved in our local politics, uh, county and state. And between the last election, you know, we were getting candidates going, and my eczema has flared up so bad. I'm like digging holes in my body from it. And so and just knee pain and things like that. And he's like, all right, well, we're gonna, what do you call that? What's the where we're looking at it? Somatic. Yeah, you brought that up earlier. I'm like, oh, I know that word or that phrase. And so he's like, all right, we're gonna close our eyes and we're gonna look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, that didn't work so much for that, but then for like the itching and stuff, we did that one for a while, and it actually did help a little bit. But then I became very frustrated, and you know, I'm a kind of a instant gratification kind of girl. I just don't have time for that, you know, during elections.
Mm-hmm.
So but no, actually it was really working. And I was shocked, actually, the first time it happened.
Like, I just made
I
this up.
know. I know. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I'm like, so it's really working on this side, but like this side's, you know, it's kind of, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, it was the weirdest thing. And so we were kind of doing that. So yeah, so, you know, like my stress, I'm finding it's coming out like in like flare-ups of like eczema and stuff. And it's like, it's getting bad to where like it's in my ears and it's coming out like on my skin behind my ears. Like it is just, which is not good because my wardrobe is 99% black and dandruff does not go with it. So yeah, it's bad. So we've been working on that, the somatic thing. And so then for I can't meditate. So we use music. Yeah, the staring at my pain just didn't do it. So we were doing that thing.
Right.
But like the holding my pain, that was the thing. He's like, imagine like holding your head. And so like this whole babying it thing was the weirdest. It was so strange. And I felt so stupid. But then it like the soothing, like it did start to like.
You gotta remember your brain is scared.
I know.
You're in danger. You gotta comfort it.
And then it like started to work. And I was like, okay.
But we always meet it with anger.
Well, because I'm mad at it. So it was a very odd, because usually I'll be the first to admit, I come at him like I married you. I didn't marry a coach. So take your stuff and go somewhere else with that. Because I've spent a lot of years dealing with a lot of my chronic pain with doctors and things before he even started doing this. And I find it very frustrating. And I know he's right, but I'm stubborn and I'm
That's
like,
why it's frustrating.
I know. And I'm not going to admit that he's right. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, I personally, I'm like, I feel like, oh, so I'm just crazy. It's in my head. And I know he's right. And he's like, you're not, and, I'm not saying you're crazy. But it's definitely hard to swallow that and like, okay, it's just my brain. I've spent all this time feeling this way when it was so obviously right there. And I've spent all this time with doctors and going to specialists and stuff and going through this and that and whatever. And nobody could tell me. But then here comes my husband. Oh, hey, by the way. Like, really?
You're welcome.
Really? So, it's really hard to get over that. And so I am one to dig in real hard, like, get away from me. I love you, but go away. So it's not him, it's me. And I'm getting better about it. But I also think I have some trauma when he was first going through this because I was his guinea pig and all of his stuff. So
I'm curious, Emmanuel, your experience in the medical care system.
Uh-huh.
Like when this first started popping up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that in some ways kind of reinforced you going down this path of chronic pain?
Yeah, I do think so. Because it was like, you got to get the surgery or else you will never be better again. Or like, and then I would research, like how many people did the surgery and like ended up still being in pain. So it definitely started a whole crazy train of thought with the whole with the whole surgery thing.
It's something I've really noticed. It kind of locks you into this belief, this idea that you're broken.
Yeah.
And they're the only ones that can fix you.
Right. Yeah, I definitely got that from at least one of the doctors I saw. The last one I saw was the most probably like the most professional. He was like, hey, like, yeah, I mean, like we did find something wrong on the MRI, but like I'm not gonna talk you into doing the surgery. Like if you want to keep doing your thing, like that's cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just want people to understand that, in medical school today, the average, standard medical doctor gets what, like 11 hours of training on pain.
seriously,
Yeah. That's it.
hours.
Yeah, they're just there to find the problem and
Right.
and to like
Okay.
So it's not like doctors have this conspiracy to lock us into pain.
right.
They're not well trained to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that none of them do. Plenty of them do, but there's, this information is out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like talking negatively about doctors. It's really the healthcare system as a whole.
Yeah, that's a scary one.
Yeah. Many other reasons as well. But
healthy people don't make money.
Well, let's jump into that a little bit. I mean,
that's my tagline in here.
Understanding that healthcare is a business, its incentive is to make profit, and chronic pain is big money.
Yeah,
it's one of the fastest growing chronic conditions out there right now. And when you approach it as if it doesn't have a cure, you have lifetime
Lifetime
customers
customer. Yeah.
who
Yeah,
are willing to pay lots of money for
that's
treatment.
a grim truth.
Yeah. And again, this isn't individual doctors or
Right.
practitioners. This is a system as a whole that
Hmm.
they're trapped working inside of.
Hmm.
But we need to understand that the system as a whole doesn't have our best interests in mind in getting us healthy as quickly as possible,
Hmm.
because then they're going to make less money,
Yeah.
which is sad. And it shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Hmm.
Chronic illnesses.
So, just the way they word things around chronic pain, chronic means it's lasts forever, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
We should probably use a different term.
Yeah.
Chronic pain management. We're just going to manage it. We're not going to fix it.
Hmm.
Like, just those words by themselves send a pretty strong message that's not helping people.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm always yelling at you for using the words you use.
What?
Everything's fine.
Everything is fine.
We're working on it. It'll get better.
It's okay.
Words have power.
Yeah, that is another thing I noticed, that I'm a lot more careful with my words after this whole program that I went through.
Yeah. Placebo effect, nocebo effect, it's the same thing in different directions, but it
Mhm.
is amazingly powerful.
He was yelling at me today.
I mean, think about it. You feel pain in your knee, you go to the doctor, you get an MRI, they find something.
Yeah, that's their job. They find something. They gotta.
Right. And if you put anybody in an MRI, they're going to find something.
Right.
If they're, over 25 years old, they damaged
There's going to be
something
wear and
along the
tear.
way.
Hmm.
It's just what happens to our bodies. They wear down.
Hmm.
So you get MRI results. They tell you, oh, this is, this is really jacked up here. This is, some scary sounding diagnosis.
Yeah, they're good at being scary.
Right. And then you've been set up with a belief that there's something wrong with you.
Hmm.
And what we found is very often this makes your pain worse.
Hmm.
All you're doing is searching for an answer, but you're given an answer that verifies, oh, there should be pain there.
Hmm.
Didn't you say they did a study on back pain? They took a bunch of random people and did MRIs, and then out of so many of those people, they told them, oh, we found something, and all of a sudden they developed back pain.
Yeah, the vast majority of people they put in an MRI machine, they find issues in the spine.
Hmm.
They don't have any pain.
Hmm.
So no one's going to look for it, but they're there. It's just normal.
Hmm.
And some of them, once they got that information, suddenly they develop pain.
Hmm.
They had a reason.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Oh, hey, by the way, it's like,
And you consider like especially when you get like a diagnosis that's terminal, for example,
Hmm.
like you've been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer or something like that, and then they put you in hospice care or something. They totally change everything about your life. How much of all those changes of reinforcements that you're going to die is part of the reason why you die?
Hmm.
well, and that's what I said earlier about being positive and keeping high spirits. And that's one thing I have noticed. A lot of cancer institutes and things like that, they do have a big part of their treatments is like a spiritual aspect. Um, I don't know if they necessarily cater to whatever religious beliefs you have, but they do keep a spiritual aspect to it, keeping your keeping the hopes up, keeping your that positivity and things like that, because they have done so many studies saying that,
It's still within
you
the
know,
framework that you're dying soon.
I mean, you know,
I remember a story another client told me about a good friend of his that was diagnosed with some form of cancer. He was given a month to live, and they told him you should probably make arrangements. We can set you up in hospice. And he looked the doctor in the eye and said, "No, I'll show you."
mm, right on.
And he left that hospital and went and lived his life just as he had been. And he lived another 6 years.
Mm.
No way.
Yeah. And he reached the point where, he did have cancer, but had done his thing. And he reached the point where, okay, I've done everything I want to do. I'm tired. Now's the time.
Mm.
But he made the decision on his own.
6 years.
Yeah. It gave him a month. So he totally rejected the belief, the idea that he's going to die. And he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me wonder.
Well, and devil's advocate here, to human is error. We can only do so much with what we have as far as,
Right. And we should be factoring that into the diagnosis.
sure. Now, I know a lot of times they'll say 6 months to a year or this or that or
It's
whatever.
an average.
A month is quite.
We're not averages, we're individuals.
I don't know.
There was a study they did. They took people in their 80s, and these were people that, were not physically active. They had a lot of health issues, and they recreated their life from 20 years ago as best they could. They created these apartments that looked just like their apartments 20 years ago. They were structuring conversations about things that were actually happening at that time. And within the span of a single week, their health reverted back to 20 years ago. They visually looked younger. They were moving better, like they were younger. If they had health problems, they improved.
Really?
Yeah. And that's just because they were within a belief, an experience that they were younger than they were.
Take me back to Y2K.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's like why be like a mature adult or
Right.
Is this what's wrong with us millennials? Is this why we're still
We
stuck?
grew up too damn
We
fast.
did. We're still collecting Tamagotchis and all that crap and hanging out with our toys. This is why they say we're not aging. We still, they had a study that we all still look better. And, have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like kids younger than us look older than us.
Yeah, even with my friends back home, we still do stupid shit that we used to do a long time ago.
Yes.
And a part of me is oh no, we should be more mature and all that. But then I'm also nah, we'll just keep doing the same old shit and stay young.
Yeah. And this isn't just this affects very specific things even. I was thinking of the study where they were working with hotel cleaning staff.
Mm-hmm.
So the maid service, and one group they just let them do the usual routine. Mm-hmm. The other group, they explained to them how their job, the way they did it, was really great exercise. Okay. They didn't change anything about their job. They just gave them this information, this expectation. So that group that they explained this to suddenly started losing weight.
Because of this simple suggestion?
Health measurements improved, like blood pressure, things like that. All because that information. They believed they were getting more exercise.
I'm going to need you to tell me that waking up every day and surviving is good exercise.
It is.
Okay.
Sometimes when I'm like lifting like I don't know. I think the other day I was like lifting a little thing, but I was like, this weighs 2,000 pounds and like
Yes.
just like in the just like to relate to that.
Yeah, and you probably built more muscle.
Yeah, right.
You know what? I better be careful because I'm thinking because I do hair. So every time I pump that chair up, I only pump it with my right leg. So I better not be telling myself that, or I'm gonna have a ridiculously like ripped right leg.
Well, it works in both directions.
I need to switch legs out.
And just our perspective of what we're doing can totally change the outcome.
Mhm.
And I think, the pain recovery process, we're working with this placebo effect, learning how to use it to our benefit consistently.
That is really fascinating, though.
We could go on all day long about placebo studies.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to like implement that.
Like, well, any clinical trial of a new drug or treatment, it has to outperform this. Like, because any trial you do, some people just get better, even though they didn't get anything.
Placebo.
But they thought they were getting something, so they got better.
Mhm.
And even things like the placebo has a brand name, it works better. It's like,
Yeah.
because we have a higher expectation. Oh, this expensive brand name is going to work better.
Yeah.
It's
Hey.
all in our head.
The mind is a terrifying, powerful thing, man.
But how often are we using it to our detriment?
Every day.
Having negative expectations, thinking negatively about ourselves. Like, what is that actually doing to us?
Spread the positivity, man.
I just got an extra heady thought.
What's that?
So like say there was a placebo motor oil for an engine. Do you think the universe is so crazy that the car might run better if the person putting the placebo motor oil in thinks that it's better than the other one?
You know,
Oh God. But wait.
I don't know that that's been tested, but that would be an interesting study. They have pretty clearly shown that our intentions, our focus, does affect the physical reality.
Yes. We've
Mhm.
talked about that before.
Random number machines, which is, it sounds simple, but it's actually a highly sophisticated piece of equipment. Like, it's really hard to spit out truly random numbers. They've shown that if someone sits there and focuses on that random number generator, it becomes less random.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like the power of group thought and like
Or
manifestation.
at times when there's something going on in the world that has everybody's attention,
Mhm.
they become less random.
God help the country right now.
Yeah, they might be less random right now too. There's been studies on like formation of ice crystals, for example, comes to mind, where they would focus on it with a positive versus a negative intention.
Mhm.
And when they did it negatively, like these crystals come out all misformed and ugly, and
Yeah.
positive intention, they're beautiful, just perfect ice crystals.
Well, it's kind of like with growing plants, right? They say talking positively to plants versus screaming at plants, or like the music and stuff. Things
Yeah.
like kind of like, the same idea.
There's been some studies very early on, but like they'll have people trained with, focusing on something with intention, and they're focusing on a specific individual with a health condition, and they seem to get better much of the time,
Mhm.
even if they're like miles and miles apart.
Mhm. Manifestation, baby.
So your placebo motor oil might be something to it.
I
Make
swear
it cheap,
sometimes
I'll
when
buy it.
I feel like when I wash my car, sometimes my car runs better.
See, this is why you cannot yell at me. He yells at me because I wash my car like once a week in the summer. I am very weird about that. I like my car being clean. He's like, oh my gosh, you just washed your car. I'm like, she was dirty and I don't like it. And the birds have bombarded it.
It's winter. It's always dirty.
Well, right now it's driving me nuts because it's dirty and I'm like freaking out. So, yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
No,
I'm
you're
backing.
probably
I'm backing this.
probably right.
I'm buying in. I'm buying in on this.
Something too. I want to see if you've noticed this. Like, as you go through this process, you learn to harness placebo effect, as we've been talking about. Like just the positive things that happen in your life seem to happen more often suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm appreciating more for sure.
You're definitely noticing it more, and I think that's definitely part of the picture. But I mean, there are some people when I first meet with them, they're like, how can this person be so damn unlucky?
Oh, it makes me sad.
Seriously, like just tragic shit happening over and over to the same person. It's like, what is going on?
I know some people like that. Yeah.
And then as they start to change, that stops.
Is it because you attract what you put out? Like I believe in that. Like I
can't prove that.
I believe in it. I think what you put out, like that vibe, you get that, dude. Like what you put out, you attract.
I've noticed it.
I'm just saying. when you're throwing out that negativity, that energy, I mean, and it's sad because I'm sure they're not doing it intentionally.
Right.
Some people are just negative, like really shitty people, and I mean, if you're bringing that in, that's on you. But when you're just sad and that's just coming off you, and they just need a little help.
I think I actually have an example of that just the other day. It like snowed. It finally snowed after so long of no snow out here. And it snowed like 2 to 3 feet in the mountains. And I wake up and there was a foot of snow on my balcony or on my deck. And I knew I had to go to work that day. And I was like, oh man, it snowed so much, but I wish I could go snowboard, but I got to go to work. And I was just shoveling my driveway, like just so happy that it finally snowed. I was just like, I was truly joyful just the fact that it snowed, like even though I had to go to work and miss the epic day of snowboarding. And then as soon as I was done shoveling my driveway, my boss texted me and my other coworker. She was like, yo, if you guys want to go get a couple laps in and just come in at 2, like that's cool. And I was like, oh my God, like
Yes.
yeah.
So I don't know, things like that.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just keeping that positive mindset, shoveling the driveway, or
maybe. I don't know if you can prove that, but it would change a lot, wouldn't it?
Oh yes. I wish my boss would just be like, hey, you know what? Come in later. Unfortunately, those little ladies need their hair done, man. They are diehards.
All right. Well, that brings us to our final break.
All right.
We'll be back in a moment.
Sounds good.
And welcome back to the Esoteric Wellness Podcast, to the final segment of the final hour. Where are we going?
Crazy.
How about this?
What?
We talked a little bit about like the healthcare system being part of the problem.
Sorry.
I think in a lot of ways, it's a cultural problem too.
Yes.
Our culture around pain, our expectations around pain, that What do you guys think about that?
I think we've
Yeah,
gotten to the point where it's like you put a cast on it and you fix it, and 6 to 8 weeks later, it's fine.
Okay.
yeah, I've grown tremendously curious of how other cultures uh, approach this, um, and I don't know for sure, but like my intuition's telling me that there's a lot of other cultures out there not getting all these surgeries or doing all this other crazy stuff.
Probably not.
I have a feeling they're also not fighting and dying over insurance and healthcare either. So,
Well, there's
whoops.
I've never seen any like cultural research specific to pain. Well, no, I take that back. There was a study, I don't remember where it was, but it was a region where there was a border, and one side of the border was very different than the other side as far as like economic wealth and
Are we talking about Korea?
access to resources. It wasn't Korea.
I was like, sounds very Korea.
Um, but they were looking at why like chronic diseases were more prevalent on the more wealthy, well-off, industrialized side.
Stress.
Well, but what stood out to me pain-wise is like conditions like fibromyalgia, which is a fancy word for chronic pain, don't exist in the poverty-stricken side.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the word doesn't even exist.
The word doesn't even exist. The
The condition
possibility
and nothing.
doesn't even exist. They still have access to medical care. They could give them a diagnosis, but it's not there.
It's not seen.
No.
Okay. And do they have a inkling as to why?
Well, I think, you know, we like an explanation of
Yeah,
why I hurt,
I'm that person.
but
I told you I'm a control freak.
having a possible explanation gives your brain an idea. Oh, fibromyalgia, that's a thing. We could create that. You see what I'm saying, though?
Yes.
Because this kind of thing, it's been around for a long, long time. It has changed as culture changes. This is something I actually spent some time researching on my own. What does this look like throughout history? Is this a new thing or has it always been there? And it's always been there, but it's really changed how it looks. Like just weird random paralysis used to be very, very common. Like suddenly, oh, my arm doesn't work. Half my body doesn't work. My legs don't work. And it wasn't until we developed the ability medically to really say, is this true paralysis or is it not, that suddenly goes away.
Huh?
Huh?
Wait. So so so
So
a while ago, people's arms were just locking up and
they would just stop working. They would feel like they were paralyzed.
We
uh,
also used to have the dancing disease too because of,
But
think
about it.
okay.
Your brain turning on pain is intended to make it harder to use part of your body to protect it.
Okay.
Well, paralysis does a pretty damn good job of that.
Yeah, so does tetanus.
That's
I'm
different.
sorry. I had to.
But once the doctors were able to say, no, you're not paralyzed, you're fine.
Oh, then I'm like, okay. I'm
Okay.
just gonna walk away.
Yeah, that's what would happen. So before that, it was very common. But what I'm trying to say is that's
So that was the version back
the
then
version that
of
the people's brains were using at that time.
so before the chronic pain, they would just like lock up.
Yeah.
Huh.
Or like Victorian era, what do they call that?
Are you coming up on hysteria right now?
Hysteria. That's
Oh
the
my
word.
God, my wandering uterus. I literally was just listening to one of my podcasts about it. That's
But
where,
what were the effects of that?
oh my God, they would put anything into the hysteria
Well, I know
category.
there was,
I could go on as a dirty feminist about
but there were
hysteria.
a lot of women with actual some kind of condition.
Yeah, very, very small would be put under
Right.
that. But basically, if I disobeyed you, you could say it was hysterical, and they
Well,
would throw me.
I'm not
you know,
getting into politics here.
yeah, that's not politics. That's whole women's rights thing. See, do you see?
It's
It's
not a political show.
not politics. It's women's rights. Anyway, but yes, yeah. But anybody who would have any kind of mental health issues,
Right.
anything kind of
They were
whatever,
all
they
kind
would.
of strange conditions back then because we didn't know
Oh,
what the
absolutely.
hell was going on.
But anytime a woman had anything, they would lump it under hysteria.
But as our medical understanding has progressed, the sophistication of our brain tricking us that there's a problem has progressed as well to match.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then the
That's
lobotomies
interesting.
came around.
I wonder, like, you watch TV in the evening, what do you see?
Every other thing's as a pill to fix something.
Drug commercials.
God,
Rattling off all these side effects and conditions.
everything from,
How much is that normalizing that there should be something wrong with us?
gosh, vomiting, blindness, anal seepage, no big deal. It's terrible.
But it's this constant bombardment with there should be something wrong with you. If there's not, we got to find it.
Yeah.
Just curious, kind of backtracking when you brought up the two different regions,
Mhm.
And the fibromyalgia. When exactly do we have an idea of when fibromyalgia that term was kind of brought about in history?
I don't
In medical-
recall when
I'm
it
gonna look that
first
up.
came up. No, it hasn't really been commonly diagnosed until the 90s.
I'm big in like the epidemiology. I'm gonna look at that up.
Even in the 90s, it was fairly rare.
Yeah. Because look how
Today,
many.
it's super common.
And my mom has it. And we fight, we go back and forth, about helping her with her issues and her plethora of autoimmune disorders and things like that. Because, she's a big ball of stress and God love her.
But even using a word like that,
Mm-hmm.
fibromyalgia,
It sounds
Which-
terrifying.
by definition, it just means pain in the body. We don't know why.
Yeah.
Fibromyalgia sounds a whole lot scarier
Mhm.
and permanent.
Mhm.
Other than, I don't know.
I mean, and because when your doctor goes, that's the best part. When your doctor walks in and goes, huh, nothing's going to piss you off faster than that. Huh.
You're not going to pay doctors very long to say, I don't know.
I've been there
Yeah,
with my migraines. My neurologist comes in and goes, huh. And I'm like, really, dude? Really? But, look at the diseases and the disorders and things that we have progressed into, like, nowadays that we have because of our ultra stressed out, whacked out lifestyles that we have because Timmy's in 8 different, after school activities and we have to work 3 different jobs and, we're living paycheck to paycheck and everything's so overstimulating and, we just, everything's on fire, but it's fine.
Yep.
It's fine. Well, I don't know. We didn't have a lot of these things back then, so. And we just have to make up fancy words to cover it because they don't know. The cow does.
Well, as you said earlier, Emmanuel, the curiosity aspect.
Mhm.
If you're given all the answers by the doctor, what need do you have to be curious?
Right.
They ain't gonna make any money
Mhm.
because healthy people don't make money.
I do feel like I have just like even just like jokingly, like asking my friends just like interesting questions more so than I ever have been. Uh,
Do they receive that well?
yeah. Like my one friend was like, this guy's asking the real questions.
Yeah, get
When
out
But
of the normal small talk.
mhm,
when you kind of spark that fuse and things start to open up,
yeah.
it can really open up a lot of different aspects of your life, and it gets you thinking about a lot of things, and
Hmm.
it
Yeah,
can be hard to think those things, but then you're like, dude, here
yeah,
we are.
I catch myself Googling crazy stuff that like I've just believed for so long and like have like researched it to actually not be the way I thought it was and like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like yeah,
Yeah,
just stay curious.
so much like that.
Hmm.
I'll ask him like, so what are you over there doing? I'm learning about blah 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my Lord. Okay. So we're gonna go down that rabbit hole today.
Yeah.
And then I have to have him explain it to me, and it's way over the head.
Once you go down enough rabbit holes, you start to realize they all connect somewhere.
This is my life. You only get him in bits and pieces. This is my life. Hmm.
I think though too, like to our show's namesake, esoteric wellness. I mean, I can't help but to connect all this to this higher esoteric process of self discovery, self learning, whatever you
Mhm.
want to call it. This process of becoming a sovereign individual that you can think freely for yourself. You can ask big questions with no answers. You don't take what you're told for granted, right? You don't have to live by what culture says you have to live by. And this is the path to that ultimate level of freedom, freedom from pain, freedom from whatever.
It's kind of scary getting there, but it's worth it.
Oh, yeah, it's not easy. You people have fully achieved it.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. I think asking those questions and not maybe knowing what the answer is going to be and challenging those beliefs that we've held for so long, that we've been told that maybe all of society believes, but you're getting on that fringe, hence the esoteric. Um, I mean, I've always been kind of on that fringe, being kind of weird and having odd beliefs and things, but um, having people look at you kind of like, eh, that it can be kind of a lonely journey. But when you feel fulfilled, my hillbilly kind of came out there a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, that is enough, I think, for you sometimes, and kind of having that truth and what is your truth be, enough to withstand some ridicule.
Would you say it's learning that you are enough? You're all you need in many ways?
I think learning, yes, that's a very hard thing for me because that's a very deep journey, and I'm still working on that
Well,
myself. So,
I'm glad you brought that up because it points out that, if we are struggling with chronic pain or chronic whatever, um, it's not like our fault. This is
feels
due
that way.
to how we were raised, our cultural upbringing, all of our past experiences, and how those affected us.
Mhm.
Like, it's not one choice you made, it's not one decision you made somewhere along the way to be in pain. It's how all this stuff comes together. And you couldn't possibly decide all that stuff with this in mind. much of it was outside of your control anyway.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, a big part of the process is becoming free of all those pre-existing conditions, expectations, limitations, whatever. So no, it doesn't have to be this way.
I think that's a lot of it too, is trauma type things too, and things that you don't realize are in there.
We all have trauma.
And we've discussed, like, when we've discussed food in the past and things like that, my family gets together. We eat when we're celebrating. We eat when we're grieving. We eat. Food is such a huge cultural thing for my family. Like, there's always food. You make food to show your love. If you are not stuffed and miserable when you go away and you didn't have enough, oh my God. And you know that your mother's the same way. Like, that was a big thing with me, was learning, like, you eat your plate, you do that, that was a big, thing for us, and unlearning those familial things, and those deep rooted things. That was a big thing too. And it was such a happy thing. Like, food is such a happy thing, but then it's like, this is killing me. This is so bad. Like, my body cannot handle, I have these intolerances that my body literally cannot handle. But this is such happy memories. And it's like, holy shit. Like, I have this thing. What do I do? And there were a lot of tears over that stuff. And, there were some really hard things there.
In your own journey, Emanuel, did you uncover any like obvious past cultural, societal, family conditioning like that might have contributed?
Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I remember my grandpa, he he always said, like, never half-ass something. Like, so that was kind
You
of
whole
like,
ass it.
yeah.
Yep.
So that might have been like the little stem of the,
Sure.
it's like, perfectionist, or like all or nothing um kind of like way I operated.
Yeah, it's amazing how, someone said to us at a young age one time, is
Yeah.
enough to
Oh yeah.
cement itself into our brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely took that one to heart for sure. I was like, oh, grandpa says never half-ass something, and
Yeah.
like, we're not gonna.
Interesting. Yeah, I know for myself personally,
I was thinking of you when he said that.
I was taught that
I was thinking of him when you said that,
to
for
an
sure.
extreme degree by my own father, but he was a perfectionist,
No.
any definition of the word.
Yep.
Um, but for me, I think the biggest contributing factor for my pain was um, that I couldn't be who I actually was. I learned at a young age in school that who I was not okay. And I have to compensate for that with this, overly macho masculine kind of persona. And my path out of pain was like realizing I don't need that shit. It's not me. I don't want to be that. And in figuring that out and letting that go, wow, I'm not in pain anymore. Amazing. But yeah, I was always kind of that sensitive kid, and I would I could spend all day out in the backyard watching bugs and shit, but
Mhm.
yeah, I learned that that wasn't okay when I started hanging out with other kids and stuff. So,
Mm.
but we all have that stuff, right? I mean, it affects us in different ways, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think another thing too that kind of had me on guard a little bit as at a young age was the fact that being a Caucasian male in Hawaii, um, you are the minority.
yeah,
And yeah, I remember in elementary school there was always, not always, but there was quite a few conflicts that I had to work my way out of. And yeah, I think that kind of had me on guard a little bit, uh, just throughout the rest of my childhood.
yeah, I could definitely see that, like creating this belief that there's something fundamentally not okay with who you are,
Right.
just because you're a different race,
Hmm.
and that makes me curious. Like, is this something that's more common in minority populations?
Mm.
Chronic pain.
Yeah,
That's a very good question. That actually would be a very interesting topic.
Yeah. Or just like even at a smaller scale, maybe of just like somebody being different in some way
yeah,
and like being on more on guard because of it, because they think they're not going to fit in or something.
yeah. It's very, very common that eventually people arrive at this kind of understanding that, wow, it's because I turned out the way I was because of all these things that are outside of my control. But that's what kind of led to this chronic pain developing and persisting. Um, but we can always change. We can always, you know, approach things in a different way, of course. But it's always interesting when people reach that point of real understanding, like, oh, that's why. That makes sense. That explains everything.
Things that make you go, huh?
Yeah. Uh,
Excuse
is a real common kind of perspective that, from year 0 to 7 or so is where we form.
me. 5.
Well, there's different opinions on what the number is
Wow.
exactly, but
Wow.
you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we form most of our like foundational programming, if you will. Like that's where our brain determines its place in the world, how to operate in the world, what's dangerous, what's not. And after that, it's just, minor tweaks to those learned programs. And yeah, we can always change it, but that kind of sets us, casts the mold, if you will.
Mm.
We can always chisel away at it and
Refine
change
it
how
a
it
little
looks.
bit.
But
Hmm. That's interesting.
yeah, and it almost always goes back to childhood in some way, right?
Hmm.
We were just talking about that the other night, weren't we? And then I made a Freud joke.
Oh,
And
he was on the right track, but
then he got a little weird.
went
Oh,
astray.
Freud.
Um,
Always blame your mother. It's terrible.
but yeah, these are very, very deep things we're talking about that we're working with. It's not just that you choose to be in pain or something like that.
Hmm.
It's getting at the very foundation of who you are and how you behave, how you think, how you feel. Um, Not that it's wrong, but there's room for improvement.
Hmm.
But also, given the experiences you've been through, that was probably the best adaptation you could have come up with. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't a mistake or anything like
Right.
that.
Yeah. just the universe working its way out.
Right.
Really have me curious now on the like the pain versus like minority thing.
It's probably going to be hard to get numbers.
Oh,
'cause
I'm sure.
You also have the problem of access to healthcare.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do know, and I know it's kind of apple and oranges. The rate of like maternity mortality in Black women versus white women is astronomically higher. But there's a lot of, as you say, politically uh, involved things in that one. But as far as chronic pain, I don't know. But they have shown that you know, things in those categories do seem to be a little skewed versus white folks. So
Well, the vast majority of clients I see are white.
yeah.
And I don't know if that's more of that healthcare.
Yeah, I was just gonna
access
say, is
thing
that
showing
healthcare?
through.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me. And that's another unfortunate.
Or maybe it's just the minorities don't choose me because I'm white. I don't know.
That weird white guy with the hair.
That could be too.
He's probably wearing a dress. Sorry. No, I'm not. Oh,
Interesting though.
it is. It is.
We're coming up on time. So if you, Emmanuel, could wave your magic wand and change one thing about the world to make all this better, what would that be?
What do you mean by make all this better?
Everything we talked about today, chronic pain, people not getting it in the first place,
Yeah.
healthcare, education, anything.
No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to wave a magic wand, I don't know tell me if this isn't really answering it properly, but if I were to wave a magic wand, I'd probably make it so that everybody had this knowledge of going through a pain recovery process and all the tools that were involved. Because yeah, I just feel like it's so useful for just even somebody who's not in pain. Like even so, if somebody's not in pain, they could help somebody who is, or they could even help themselves through small times of trouble. Yeah, there's just so many good tools that I got out of the program. I just feel like it could apply to everybody in any situation.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've used it with people pretty much the same approach, maybe some variation depending on what they're working on, but all kinds of different chronic symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be just pain, be chronic disease, could be depression, anxiety, PTSD. I mean, all these things, all these symptoms is your brain and your body saying, hey, something's not right.
Like I said, mind, body, soul.
And even if there is something physically not right, you can use your mind to help make it better. Because that placebo effect is pretty damn powerful. So even someone who has like diabetes, which is an actual condition, there's even been some studies on this, like this mind-body based approach will make their symptoms better. Their numbers will improve. Their experience will improve. And this isn't just like a make-believe symptom, this is a real medical condition. But just learning how to use your mind to your benefit and do it consistently. I mean, my belief is this goes way beyond what the hell we're even talking about here. I mean, we dabbled in it a little bit, but like, who knows what we could achieve if we learn to harness the power of this and do it consistently over time. Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
We are some interesting creatures, and we have the ability to do a whole lot more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
I need to take my own advice.
That's the hard part.
Oh, I know. I can tell other people about this all day long, but then I'm like, yeah, about that.
That's the challenge.
Eh.
Well, thank you so much, Manuel, for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was
My
a
pleasure.
pleasure spending this much time with you and not just 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, this was fun. It was good to hang out and share.
Definitely. And my hope is at least one person will listen to this and get that little spark of hope that, wow, maybe the future for me can be different.
Maybe we're not just full of shit. I mean, yeah, we are, but in not such a way. There's like a real person.
Yeah. I'm making all this up. Oh,
His wife that just sits here and puts up with him.
you're so mean to me.
I am not. I'm not.
All right. Well, I hope you get out there and enjoy some more snow before winter comes to an end.
You can keep it, honey. You can have my snow. You can have your snow.
Yeah. We'll take it.
You take it, babe. You have it. You enjoy it.
If we had mountains to ski and snowboard down, we might enjoy it.
Yeah.
I've got a couple friends out there, and she sends me videos out there, or like Snapchats of them enjoying the snow, and I'm like, it looks nice. I don't know. They have the sunshine while doing it too.
That's true.
We hit over 50 today. I was so excited.
Oh man, it might have gotten warmer here actually.
Oh God.
It's coming this way.
Yeah.
You're breaking my heart, man. I'm ready for spring, okay? I just want sunshine, and I just want to be able to wear my Birkenstocks. That's all I want. I just want my Birkenstocks back out. I'm wearing them tomorrow.
Okay, you're gonna get wet.
I don't care. I need to be able to go stand in some grass, and I'll be happy. That's all I want. I need to ground.
Okay. All right,
I can't do that.
Thank you, sir, once again.
Yeah.
We'll probably talk to you sometime soon.
Sounds good. Yeah,
And,
I'd love to stay in touch.
Yeah. Yeah, this was awesome.
This was good.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It's nice to have somebody else to talk to and not just us. So I love you, but it is really nice to have somebody else too.
Well, we'll do more of this then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that concludes today's episode. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for spending the time with us to listen, to learn. If you are interested about the program in which Emanuel and I met and worked through, again, that is called Lynn Health. You can find more information about that program at their website, www.lin.health. That's LIN.health. And anyone interested in working with me one-on-one as a coach, working through chronic pain or anything else health related, you can find more information about myself and my services that I offer at my website, www.kylebonbrake.com. That's KYLEBONBRAKE.com. And if you, the listeners, have questions, you want to hear a specific topic discussed on the show, you have ideas, concerns, reviews, whatever, we would love to hear from you guys. And you can reach out to us anytime. Our email address, esotericwellnesspodcast@gmail.com. And if you do find you gain value from this show and you want to give back in some way, we do accept donations. There's a donation link on most of the podcasting platforms where you could find our show. If you feel so inclined and you feel generous in that way, we would greatly, greatly appreciate that. That just allows us to spend more time focused on the show, upgrade equipment, things like that. So we would greatly appreciate that. Of course, only if you find the show to be valuable to you in that way. So thank you, everybody, again for spending this time with us. And as always, you are beautiful. You are loved. Until next time.